Once again, I want to welcome all of our JUS TV viewers. You are watching a special conversation we're having today as part of our ongoing series this month to highlight women in positions of power, especially government, who are not just breaking barriers, but they are paving the way for another generation of women to step up and assume those roles of power and be real role models for women everywhere. And today it gives me great pleasure. We're here in Nassau County, New York, a county that is known not just around the country, but around the world for its population, for its GDP, for its demographics, its growth, and some of the most progressive values you can see in a county. Here in New York City, not only is Nassau County home to millions, but once again, it's breaking barriers. And today, we have with us today the Honorable Comptroller of Nassau County, Miss Elaine Phillips. First of all, Miss Phillips, I'd love to welcome you to our program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Aashmeeta. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you to JUS TV for doing this program and highlighting women.
Comptroller Phillips, you have this illustrious career. Prior to even your entry into the world of politics and local government, you had a very notable presence in the financial industry. What challenges, before you ever even entered politics, did you encounter as a female in an industry that is, even today, so male-dominated?
It is. So I spent my financial career in the private sector on Wall Street. The majority of that time was spent at Goldman Sachs. And interesting, though, issues that sometimes government is dealing with today, we were dealing with way back then. So my very last role at Goldman was to chair our diversity efforts. And it really was a goal to mentor women, young women coming into the business or lateral hires, mentor diversity, minorities candidates, so they felt that there was a pathway. So this was back in 2008. We were talking about this. The other thing where Goldman was, I had all three of my children at Goldman Sachs, and our maternity leave was 4 months.
Wow.
So there are so many industries, government included, that are really just trying to catch up. So you think, oh my goodness, the financial service sector, it's way behind. It's way ahead in many ways. But I still think there's this continuous struggle with women. And I say this respectfully to all the fathers out there, but the fact is, I believe, that women run the household in most cases. So there's constantly this struggle when you have a job that is extremely demanding. The hours are long. I used to take the 5:44 train in the morning, and as my career progressed, maybe I went to the 6:20 train, but it's still early. And the earliest I'd walk in the door would be 7 o'clock in the evening.
Wow.
To bathe my children, have dessert with them, and then cook dinner once they went to bed and start all over again. So I think that's the hardest thing. That struggle for women of how do I, we get to be the mothers, the dads don't get to be the mothers. And how do you balance that work-life balance? And it's easier said than done. I have 3 daughters, and they're well into their careers, and we don't have any grandchildren yet, but I know the day is coming that they're going to be attempting to do the same struggle. I was really very fortunate. Goldman allowed me to work 3 days a week, 4 days a week. I job shared for 8 years, where another woman and I had one compensation package, and we split it.
Wow.
I worked 2 days, she worked 3 days. So, yeah, that's the struggle.
I mean, I'm so glad you highlighted this, right off the bat in our conversation. Recent studies have shown the nosedive that women's careers take from the start of motherhood. And even though the study may be recent, the data, the practice has spanned decades.
Right.
And so I appreciate you highlighting that. Comptroller Phillips, having this kind of flexible professional life at, once again, a very high level in this industry, in the financial industry, what was it that prompted you to then make the shift into local politics?
Well, it really was, my husband and I were fortunate that one of us could stay home. And many families, that's not the case. So we were fortunate. My husband was traveling all over the world for his job, and I had these 3 young girls at home. So really a decision was to leave the industry. And I was already involved to a lesser extent in local government, my give back to my community. And so it really wasn't a strategic decision, I would say. It was more kind of a life decision, what happened in life. So it presented me when they asked me to run for mayor. I'm not sure I would have been able to do it had I still been working in the financial service industry. I was a trustee, which is a much different level of responsibility than mayor. So, opportunities came to me. One of the things I say to women, and I don't want to get ahead, but I say to women in particular, women have a tendency of not saying yes when an opportunity comes to them. And did I know how to be a mayor? The answer is no. But the opportunity came to me because I had transitioned out of my other profession, and I said yes.
Well, it wasn't just an opportunity, it was kind of a game changer. Comptroller Phillips, not only were you the first woman to serve as Flower Hill's mayor, you are currently the first woman to hold this position, the position of Nassau County Comptroller. Just for viewers, just to give you an idea of the physical space here where we are today in the Comptroller's office, walking down these halls, you see a long line of portraits of men, all pictures in black and white. And at the very end of that long line, you see a beautiful, colorful picture of Comptroller Phillips, the first woman in a long line of men. Once again, how was it navigating all of these firsts?
I think in a way, I didn't think about it until after the fact. So, like so many successful women, my mother never went to high school. My father never went to high school, but we were raised to be, and I'm one of 4 girls. We were raised to be independent women, and I'm the first in my family to go to college. And but there was and I'm the youngest, so there was no question in my mother's mind, although we didn't have the resources, my mother was going to make sure I went to college. So I think I didn't overthink it. It was an opportunity. There were people around me supporting me, saying, Elaine, sure, you should do this. The same thing in between the mayor and this controller's role was I was a New York State senator. And again, never thinking, as a mayor, there is no politics. You make sure that the roads are fixed, the street lights are on, the parks are beautiful. You do some environmental issues. And when at the time, and it's currently my state senator, Jack Martins, called me up and said, would you run for this New York State Senate seat? I mean, never in my wildest dreams did I really think. So I went home and discussed it with my husband. My youngest daughter was in college by then, He said, Elaine, what's the worst thing that could happen to you? You'd lose. Okay, so you meet a tremendous amount of people, you know, get exposed to probably organizations that you had never knew about before. You know, I'll still love you, the dog will still love you, the girls will still love you, so why not? And I did, and we won.
Comptroller Phillips, you were walking us through some of the trials and tribulations of your journey from the financial services sector at Goldman Sachs, all the while raising three wonderful daughters, to then your transition into local government, mayor, state senator, to now comptroller of one of the most affluent, if not the most affluent county in the United States.
Right.
Nassau County is very unique in its demographics in that it's not just diverse when it comes to income levels, but it's diverse in its population. And you do a really great job of connecting with all these various communities. We've seen you at various events in the Asian American community, and you have a true relationship with them. One of the hallmarks of any thriving community is how they care for the folks, when people need it the most, the healthcare systems. There has been some controversy in Nassau County around Nassau University Medical Center, NUMC. You recently wrote an op-ed about this, addressing those rumors and addressing some of the misinformation that is prevalent around this, that the average person and resident may not be aware of. What insight can you share specifically as the comptroller on the public hospital's ownership as well as its current financial state?
Great, thank you. So I believe the role of the comptroller is to educate our taxpayers of Nassau County what our financial liabilities are. So we really started the piece, and I recommend everyone read the piece. You can go to the Nassau County Comptroller's website and see the piece there. But it was a piece that took something very complicated and made it readable to the average person. So the average taxpayer in Nassau County truly understood where the university hospital is. So first, Nassau County is not financially responsible for Nassau University Medical Center, despite the word Nassau in its title. It had been prior to 1999. The hospital was in had some financial issues at the time, and the state and the county negotiated where the hospital would be sold to a public benefit corporation called NHCC. So what happens now, since 1999, there's a board of trustees who have a fiduciary responsibility, this board, to make sure that the hospital and the nursing home and all the affiliation around it stays viable. Well, the fact is the hospital, unfortunately, is in a dire financial condition right now, has been. So this is not today's news, but it's getting to the point where the board is saying that the cash flow may last for another month, and in the best case for several more months. So we're not talking years, we're talking months. And it has been a situation where the state has known this for years. You know, it's the hospital does audited financials every year. So what the county is responsible for is we have guaranteed it's a little less than $100 million of their debt. This debt, it matures in 2029, so we have 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and matures in 29 of payments due. We cannot prepay those payments. It's about $15 million per year that we're liable for. And we're liable for this debt if the hospital overnight becomes financially in great shape or continues to have financial difficulties. So it's a liability that the county prepares for, we can pay for. We're also responsible for the pensions of those employees that were employed by the hospital prior to 1999, many of which have retired, but several of them are still employed. So it's a liability for our taxpayers that will decrease over time because these people will eventually pass away. It costs us about $13 million a year. On a $3.9 billion budget, fortunately, this is a liability for the taxpayers of Nassau County that really is minimal. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, we have a moral and ethical obligation. This is a hospital where 65% of their patients are either on Medicaid or Medicare. Another 9% are uninsured. And these are patients. People say, well, we have NYU is here with Winthrop, Northwell is here, Stony Brook's out there. I am confident that these hospitals don't want to take over NUMC. Without some sort of support from the state, the federal government, or possibly Nassau County also. So we're in a situation here where I know the hospital administration has gone to the state for support. I understand the state has come back and said that they may be willing to support, but with caveats around that, and that's understandable. The state also put the Nassau Interim Finances, NIFA, where the county is still under a control period, despite the fact we have run surpluses for years now. That's a different conversation. NIFA also is in control and oversight of the hospital, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. The hospital has proven for years now that it does need oversight. But we have to come together. It's too easy to point fingers and saying, okay, this person or that person, this organization. The fact is, this is going to take effort by the state, possibly the federal government, and to possibly the county also when it comes to making NUMC viable. And it's not going to happen overnight.
Once again, I'm glad you're clarifying this because one of the, most glaring features of Nassau County is its diversity and the large percentage of the population that relies on a healthcare system like NUMC for care. You're directly speaking to them and letting them know how the county is stepping up, but where your responsibilities are kind of where the boundaries lie. Right. Comptroller, when you talk about some of the threats to the financial situation regarding the hospital, is there any particular threat to the continuity in terms of the hospital's financial situation and the services it's able to provide to some of the most needy members of the county?
Well, the biggest threat, it's just going to run out of cash. And we are talking within months if something isn't done quickly. So what happens if it runs out of cash? It literally closes its doors, which is not a viable solution. And NIFA has brought in consultants over the last couple of years. And in fact, they've spent $1.8 million of Nassau County taxpayer dollars to bring these consultants who have done really phenomenal reports in giving the hospital leadership various options to make the hospital viable. But nothing has changed. And I will say the current board and the current administration, let me clarify that, the current administration over the last year has done a pretty remarkable job of making sure that the payments that the hospital is due for serving all this population, this payment, and I don't have the exact numbers, so I'm going to make up numbers. If the amount of payment due from serving Medicaid and Medicare patients or private insured patients should be 12 million, they're back up to 9 million a day. So that's a huge increase from where they were even 2 years ago. So the pathway is moving forward. It just isn't moving forward
fast enough.
Fast enough, exactly. So, and look, someone very negatively pointed out, and very personally pointed towards me versus the office, that the Comptroller's office has not gone in and done an audit. Well, the fact is, NIFA is the control entity. They have consultants and auditors in there. The hospital itself has hired outside consultants. The last thing these people need right now is for my team of auditors to go in there. They'll never get any work done. Right. They're just going to be constantly, and the fact is the University Hospital, NUMIC, its financials are audited by an independent auditing firm every year. So, I just don't, I feel it would be a waste of taxpayer money for us to go in at this point. The people that actually do the work just wouldn't have any time to do the work. So let's see where things go.
Once again, I really appreciate your transparency around this matter. There is so much disinformation, misinformation nowadays. It's so easy to point fingers without understanding the full breadth of who is supposed to be doing what and who can do what to mitigate and improve a situation, especially when it comes to such a large financial obligation within the county for a hospital serving so many underserved folks.
And if I could interrupt just for 1 second, it's very hard, even for those of us that are closer to it, to understand what does it mean to be a public benefit corporation. When they set this up in 1999, there was financial obligations by the county to the public benefit corporations. We made those payments for X amount of years. We stopped making. There is such a history here. But you know what? It's history. Where are we today? The fact is, the county is liable for the debt, and we're liable for the pension. And we also, the hospital serves our prison, our jail. So our incarcerated individuals, if they have something, healthcare needs, we rent a little bit of space there. But the fact is, it's the public benefit corporation, this kind of very complicated, it's the board, it's the administration that have a fiduciary responsibility. And it will take the state, the board, and I believe the county to work together to make this work. It really is.
Well, once again, Comptroller, sometimes, and I don't mean to oversimplify, like you said, a very, very complicated situation, but sometimes it takes a little bit of a woman's touch, and I do feel that somewhere the residents of Nassau County will benefit from having you being part of the problem-solving team on this.
Right.
We will definitely look forward to seeing how things work out.
Thank you.
Just to wrap up our conversation today, we've covered, a wide range of issues, not just in your professional life, some of your personal support system, and also some of the issues that have come up recently in the county.
Okay.
If you had to sum it all up, which once again might be a gross oversimplification, but for the sake of time,
Right.
if you had to give some words of advice to women that maybe in, these professional roles that they are doing remarkably well, they are figuring out how to balance the family and the work life, but somewhere in them is this gnawing feeling that I can do more for my community. How do they open that door to maybe get involved, to maybe create a path for themselves in local government? Because there's still a need for more women in these positions of power. What do you say to them?
So when I speak to women's groups, and I have the opportunity and I love speaking to women's groups, I say, first, if an opportunity comes and presents itself, say yes. Men will say yes, even if they don't have any clue on what the opportunity is. Where I believe women have a tendency of overthinking. Oh my gosh, do I understand? Once in a while, you have to take some risk and you have to say yes. Work hard. The beauty of being a woman is we are hard workers. We run a family, we volunteer for whatever organizations, we have jobs. We're hard workers, and I think employers are always looking for those individuals that raise their hand, but don't just raise their hand and don't do it. They follow through and they work hard. Be a mentor. In my age group, it's my obligation to mentor women that career-wise are younger than me. And if you are at whatever stage of your career, find a mentor. Mentors are absolutely imperative. And then I would just say, we'll save this for another time, but I'm a martial artist. I have trained in a martial art for 28 years, and I train to this day. And one of the values in martial arts that we stand for is honesty and being ethical. And I think that's kind of the surrounding, that's kind of the value that would encompass. Take opportunity, work hard, be a team player, right? Be a team player. Be a mentor, find a mentor. But in the end, it's honesty and being ethical that is going to allow your career to succeed.
Wow, such wise words. Once again, such a pleasure speaking with you, Comptroller Phillips. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you to JUS TV. Yeah.
Thank you. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding this interview, you can reach us at info@jusbroadcasting.com, Aashmeeta@jusbroadcasting.com. Stay tuned.